So how do you think the defenses are going to shake out in this division?
So going back to the top, talking about the Cowboys here, Cowboys are a misleading defense, right? They were first in takeaways, and everybody knows what Trayvon Diggs was doing with his 11 interceptions. But if you also look at it, this defense gave up a bunch of yards. Now, they weren't the worst defense in the NFL by any stretch, but they did not get any better in the offseason. Last year they were 20th in pass yards allowed, 16th in rush yards allowed, 19th in total yards allowed. So this defense mostly stayed the same. There's no Randy Gregory this year, which I think will make a difference. As the year goes on, it'll make a difference in their pass rush, which will make a difference in their secondary. And so I think, if they can't have Micah Parsons absolutely annihilating offensive lines again this year, because people have tape on them now, you got to assume people are going to be better defending against Micah Parsons. That defense is going to struggle more if they're not getting to the quarterback. So I expect this defense to take a step back this year for the Cowboys.
Yeah, you you took all the words right out of my mouth. Micah Parsons is not that he's not a gamer. I don't mean that at all, but he's going to have to work a little harder to get what he got last year for sure. And Trayvon Diggs, I don't mean to take anything away from the guy, but it'll be a miracle if he can repeat what he did last year. That just doesn't happen. It's just not the way it works. And those two are the only reason, maybe Randy Gregory in that equation, but they're the only reason that the Cowboys defense went from mediocre to good last year. And so I agree with you. I don't think any of those things are going to be at the level they were last year. So someone else is going to have to come out of nowhere and surprise us. And with their draft picks, I don't see that coming out of the draft. So I think they're back. I agree with you. I think they're going to slide a little bit. What about the Eagles?
So the Eagles are a defense that I really like coming in this year. And we've already talked about the offense. You can tell here I really like the Eagles this year. Now, last year they were 18th in total points allowed, but they're right around 10th in yards allowed for everything. Now, where they need to get better is takeaways. But when you bring in a guy like James Bradbury to be on the opposite side of Darius Slay in your secondary, that is huge. That should help bring a couple more takeaways. You bring in a guy like Hassan Reddick to help with the pass rush. That should help put some pressure on the quarterback, which should turn into some turnovers somewhere. And then you bring in one of the biggest freaks of nature I've ever seen coming to the NFL, Jordan Davis, a defensive tackle out of Georgia. This kid was 6'7", 340 pounds, and ran like a 4.6. This guy's a freak. If you watched him in college, it's not just big body. Like, the kid moves. He's really strong. He can push people out of the way. So I think this defense going to be really, really good against the run. I wouldn't be surprised if this is the number one rush defense this upcoming season. I expect them to be able to put pressure on the quarterback and to be good in the secondary. So I think when you look at the Eagles' 2021 stats, I think everything should be better from the defensive side for them in 2022.
Yeah, I agree with you. They've got a lot of really young talent, and I don't know that I'm as on board about this year as you are, but I mean, I agree with everything you say. I don't know that I'm as hyped up about what their production will be this year, but I think if it's not this year, it will definitely be the years to come. This is a defense on the rise, I think.
Yeah. This is a defense that, especially they keep drafting freaks like Jordan Davis, they're going to be a problem for years to come.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so what about Washington?
Washington. So last year, not very good, right? But they had some injuries that I thought really derailed them last year. Obviously, you lose Montez Sweat, you lose Chase Young. There goes your whole pass rush at that point. You've drafted these two young guys to lead you for the future. So, they're going to get them back now. It did come out just a couple days before we're recording this that Chase Young, very possible he's not ready for week 1. So it could be a couple weeks into the season they get him back. But it doesn't really matter for the Commander. They're not a playoff team this year anyways. So, let Chase take his time, get back. I think as long as those guys can stay healthy, the main guys can stay healthy, I think they should get better. They were bottom 10 in pretty much every category last year except for rush yards allowed, but nobody ever rushed against Washington because their pass defense was so bad. So I think this year it should get better. But again, this is the NFL. The injury rate is 100% for everybody. So anything can happen. But I do see this defense getting better this year.
Okay. What about the Giants?
The Giants are a tough one for me because, I feel like sometimes we see that defense perform well. Sometimes they look like one of the worst defenses in the league. And when you see their stats from last year, some of it's middle of the pack, some of it's really bad. So it's kind of the same thing, but they lose James Bradbury, which is a big deal. Not only do you lose James Bradbury, he went to a division rival. So James Bradbury not being in the secondary is going to hurt the defense. And the way I see the Giants, especially that defense, is that this is a team that's rebuilding. They spent so much money on the offense there in New York. But the defense, they don't have much invested there. I know they just drafted Kayvon Thibodeau, and he's supposed to be an animal. We'll have to see what he can do in the NFL. But I just think that in all regards, the Giants defense will take somehow, some way, a step backward in 2022 than what they were in 2021.
Yeah. Well, and you didn't mention Logan Ryan. I mean, they lost Bradbury and Logan Ryan, and their secondary is just decimated. And hopefully, bringing in Thibodeau will shore up that front seven. But I don't know that it's going to matter. There are too many holes. There were too many holes last year, and they didn't get them plugged. The holes shifted. They got some plugged over here, but the other ones, it'll be too easy for teams to find those holes and exploit them.